What up, everybody? Seasons 1 and 3 of Power Book 2 Ghosts, there was a forced crossover as Tommy Egan returned to New York. And we've been waiting for a Book 2 crossover to happen on Force, but that still hasn't happened yet. And I still do expect to see Tommy Egan in another Force crossover on this final season of Ghosts. But we may just get a crossover this season that nobody was expecting. And that is the Ghost and Raising Kanan crossover via Monet's flashback scenes. Monet's character description for Season 4 says that we're going to get a look into another side of Monet via flashbacks. And we'll get our first look into a flashback in Episode 2 as we can see the image on the screen with Monet and either baby Zeke or baby Kane. So we'll learn more into the backstory of Monet, Lorenzo, and Dante for sure. From the meeting of Dante and getting pregnant with Zeke, to Dante getting locked up and being sent to the military, and then Monet meeting Lorenzo. In these flashback scenes, Monet will be going by the name Nene Stewart. What we know so far from these 3 previous seasons is that Monet got pregnant at 16 by Dante, but he disappeared after getting arrested, unknowing to Monet at the time. Then he joined the military to get his charges dropped. Monet was then sent down south to South Carolina, where she gave birth to Zeke. Her sister Lena always wanted a boy, so then she raised Zeke as her own. In Season 4, we'll also get introduced to Monet's cousin Janet, just to clear up that she was not who raised Zeke, if anyone was thinking that. But while in the military, Dante met Lobos and began working for him, as he transformed himself into Mecca after snitching his way to the top of the game, snitching on cartel leaders, freedom fighters, and arms dealers. And he became Noma's fiancé, as Noma would use Mecca's snitching to her advantage to further advance her empire. And we also know that at least one of the cartel leaders Mecca snitched on was Lobos. When Mecca had his face-to-face with Tariq, he told him that by ghost killing Lobos, it saved him from having to testify against him. He also mentioned knowing both Ghost and Tommy, and he even knew the fact that Tariq killed Ghost. Raising the question, does Dante know Ghost and Tommy from their childhood in Southside Jamaica, Queens? And could these flashback scenes be setting the stage for some of the backstory that will be told in Power Book Origins? I've watched several Monet scenes before watching this video, trying to see if it was ever mentioned where she grew up. And I never heard this mentioned. If you do know this information, let me know the episode where it says that she grew up in the comments section. I did see when she met up with Dante for the first time after he was knocking down her trash cans and playing New Edition in front of her house like old times, that she met up with him at Junior's Cheesecake in Brooklyn. But at the same time, we do know for sure that the Tejadas live in Queens, and they've been living in Queens dating back to the time before Lorenzo got arrested. So I would narrow down to where she grew up to either Queens or Brooklyn. Possibly Monet grew up in Brooklyn, but after her parents sent her down south, when she came back to New York at around 18, this might have been when she returned to New York, but to Queens instead of Brooklyn, as she began to reinvent herself. But if Monet and Dante did grow up in Queens, we have to ask the question, who was Dante getting his supply from at the time he got arrested? And did he snitch on this person? And that's why he was given the opportunity to go to the military instead of prison. And if this happened, have we met Dante's plug already on Raising Kanan? Maybe he didn't snitch, but instead, Dante served as one of Kanan and Breeze's corner boys, and that's how he knew about Ghost and Tommy. So hopefully, we find out where Monet grew up in one of these flashback scenes. But something to keep in mind is how many siblings did Monet have, and were they in the life as well? Because we do know that she has a sister named Lena who raised Zeke, but a big question is, why did she move from New York to South Carolina? And regardless of where Monet grew up, we for sure know that her and Lorenzo were running a drug operation in Queens during the early 2000s when Lorenzo got locked up. But at this time, Kanan, Ghost, and Tommy were also hustling in the streets of Queens, New York. This means that the Tejadas were either working for Kanan, getting their supply from him, or they were his competition and his enemies on the streets. There's no way around it. They were at the same place at the same time. Almost like the rivalry that Rock and Unique had in Raising Kanan Season 1. There's just no way that the two sides didn't know about each other. But also keep in mind that Ghost and Tommy inherited Queen's territory from Kanan when he got locked up, who inherited the territory from Breeze. Then when Ghost got Kanan out the way and they expanded their business, they gave the Queen's territory then to the gang led by Rolla called the RSKs. So the Tejadas were nowhere in the picture at this time, but we do know that they were also around, and they were tied in with the gang, the GTGs. When we were first introduced to Mecca in Season 2, he said that he had hit licks with GTG founder Big Guap back in the day, and that he had heard of the name Lorenzo Tejada, but never met him. But this could have all been lies as well to get close to Kane so he could get info about Monet. As a side note, I want to bring this up real quick, is what is the chances that Carter's wife could have been killed in a shootout between the RSKs and the GTG? Because they seem like they had to be rival gangs in Queens until around 2015 when the RSKs were wiped out. Getting me to how Monet met Lorenzo in the first place. Monet lied to Lorenzo from the time she met him, telling him that he was her first, when she already had a whole child by another man. This was part of the reason why Lorenzo was so upset and told Monet to leave when he found out the truth about Zeke. Also, Monet has never been faithful to Lorenzo, going back to Season 1 when she was cheating on him with Detective Ramirez. And in Season 2, she was cheating on him with Mecca. And it wasn't like she wasn't getting conjugal visits with Lorenzo in the prison at the same time. So with that said, there's been rumors going all the way back to Season 1 that Kanan was Kane's real father and not Lorenzo. Keep it in mind that Kane's real name is Lorenzo Tejada Jr., but he goes by his nickname Kane. Supposedly he got his nickname because he was wild like a hurricane. I call Cap. Monet was sick of calling that boy after a man who wasn't even his real father, so she decided to give him the nickname Kane after Kanan, his real father. I mean, she probably gave it a chance to be Lorenzo's son. She probably realistically didn't even know whose child it was when she found out she was pregnant. But when the child grew up and started resembling Kanan more than Lorenzo, she knew what time it was. And again, they were around the same location at the same time period. So this is definitely a possibility. And even if Kanan was Lorenzo's enemy, I could definitely see Monet as the type who messed with both of them. The difference is Kanan, always being ahead of the game, knew that Monet was for the streets, while Lorenzo thought Monet was in love with him. And this is why Monet ended up getting married to Lorenzo. Hopefully this question will get answered once and for all in these flashbacks. Otherwise, we might have to wait until Origins to get these answers. Or I think there's a real good possibility that these flashback scenes of Monet is setting up a Tejada prequel that will run on the same timeline as Origins, creating the possibility of crossovers between the Tejada book and the Origins book. And something else that has never been mentioned throughout Ghost so far is anything about Monet's parents. Other than the fact that at age 16, she wasn't making her own decisions. And the thing about Mecca knocking down the trash cans. So with that said, was Monet's parents also in the game? Is being in the game a generational thing for her family going back to her parents? And if they were in the game, what are the chances that they are connected to Rock or Lou or any other Raising Kanan character? A name I want to mention that has been brought up all 3 seasons of Raising Kanan, but we've never seen this character on screen, is Early Tyler. What if Early Tyler ends up being Monet's father? And because the fact that Patina Miller, who plays Rock, Malcolm Mays, who plays Lulu, and Joey Badass, who plays Unique, aka Breezy, were all at the premiere of Season 4 of Ghost, this makes me think that Rock and Lou, and maybe even Unique, are gonna pop up in one of these flashback scenes. But if they do, they'll probably be talking to Monet's parents, or even just passing by and seeing Monet jumping rope on the sidewalk in front of her house. This would be a crazy, full circle scene after Pop just told Rock in Raising Kanan Season 3 that she remembers Rock as a little girl jumping rope in front of her parents' house. But if they do have a crossover with any Raising Kanan character other than Kanan or Jukebox, it would most likely be a flashback of Monet at 13 years or younger, because the current timeline for Raising Kanan is 92 or 93, and they don't want to spoil what characters will survive by doing something like putting Rock in a flashback from 1999. And there you have it. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.